hosts, Linda Dano and Jerry Penicoli.
I'm Jerry Penicoli. Welcome to Attitudes. And you know what happens. I mean, I hate to bring it up, but you know what happens every time in the month, right?
What?
Once a month.
What?
Oh, premenstrual syndrome, right?
PMS.
PMS, right? And along with that, I mean, everybody gets, most women get, you know, symptoms that are normal.
Now.
No, I mean, but
Be careful.
I know about this stuff.
I do have
Men
that
get it too.
But I've heard that.
Yeah, it's
I've
true.
heard
It's
that.
true. But some women, and this is really serious, folks, some women get these horrific symptoms which make them violent. And we're going to talk to a woman like that today, and also to some women who believe that PMS is a valid legal defense in a court of law. Interesting
I
stuff.
wonder, do you all think that?
Yeah.
Do you? No, oh, isn't that interesting? A lot of women don't.
We'll get their response.
Well, that's very interesting.
Welcome back. You know, more and more attention has been focused on premenstrual syndrome in both the medical profession and, as you know, in the media and the press. Should PMS be used as a valid excuse for a woman to commit acts of violence? Joining us today is Sally Delgadio, who suffers from severe PMS. Also with us, Stephanie Benson. She's an attorney who tried and won the very first case in the United States using PMS as a defense. And Dr. Sue Dakotas, author of A Woman's Guide to Sexual Health. Now, she doesn't think any of this is valid at all. And please welcome them all, will you? First of all, Sally, how has PMS affected you over the years?
Well, I didn't realize I had PMS until after I had my first son. That was about 6, 7 years ago. I was very, very depressed. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to be around people. I was very panicked, paranoia.
Did it get worse?
Yes.
How so?
That finally I'd gone to my gynecologist, and he had said there's something wrong, and I had a D&C, and he found out my estrogen level, my whole chemistry was off. And he had said to me, he said, after we got all the results back, that if I would have killed somebody, I would have gotten away with it. He said, and if I would have...
Were you at that point?
Yes, I used to beat my son. He was only 2 years old.
You beat your son?
Yeah. Well, not even a wooden spoon, a metal spoon. But I didn't, when I used to hit him, I had no remorse that, gee, I'm sorry that I hit you and I hurt you.
How often did you do this?
Every day.
Every day? When you had PMS?
When I had a hormonal imbalance, yeah.
And you're absolutely sure that it was caused by the PMS?
Oh, definitely, because my gynecologist told me, he said, if you would have killed someone, you would have gotten away with it. And if I would have painted my house like crazy colors, he said that would have been normal for you. And I knew the way I felt. I knew there was something wrong with me. And I went from doctor to doctor. I went to 2 endocrinologists in Manhattan. I was all over looking for doctors to try to help me. I knew something was wrong.
And in fact, Stephanie Benson, you tried, or you were involved with a woman who had abused her child. And tell us the story of how you dealt with that and used PMS as a valid legal defense.
I worked at the Legal Aid Society in Brooklyn, and I had a woman who was arrested for beating her child. And she said to me only 3 things which she seemed fixated on. And these 3 things that she said to me were, I don't know what happened. I didn't mean to hurt my child. I just got my period. I really didn't know what that meant, but after a while I consulted with a psychiatrist. And
were you just doing your job as being a good lawyer for her, or do you truly believe that PMS caused her to abuse her child?
I never heard of PMS before. I listened to what my client told me, and as any good attorney does, endeavored to understand what happened.
And you concluded?
I didn't conclude. The doctor concluded that this is what she had. I hit the research books, and I found that the audience here may not know it, but to have a crime, you have to have a criminal act and a criminal intent. And New York State defines a criminal act as a voluntary act, an act that's the product of free will. And I found hypoglycemia cases, seizure cases, brain tumor cases, leaks from toxic gas, somnambulism, epilepsy, hypnosis. These are all called automatism defenses, and they're a complete defense. This is not getting to the mental intent to diminish capacity or insanity. In fact, it's a conditioned precedent that it is required that first there must be a criminal act before you decide if there's a criminal intent. Obviously, PMS, as many other things, can interfere with your ability to act in a conscious and aware sense.
But don't you think there's a potential abuse of this defense?
I don't know anything that isn't potentially able to be abused.
Dr. Dakotas, what are your feelings on this, your thoughts? Do you think that the PMS is a valid defense?
I'm not so sure, Jerry. I'm really not so sure. I'm an internist practicing in Manhattan. I treat a large volume of young women patients, all of childbearing age. And let me tell you this, premenstrual syndrome is a problem that just about every woman experiences at some time in her life. And yes, the symptoms can be very disturbing. And there is a broad spectrum of symptoms of
Can it cause someone
syndrome.
to commit a violent crime or to abuse a child or to stab your husband or blow up a building? I mean, can it cause that?
I have never seen where that has been proven.
And you think that this
So
is absolutely possible, Stephanie?
I don't say that things are never or always. I look at each person as an individual. That's the way they deserve to be treated.
But
that's what the evidence was in this case. And I would like to say that when you go to see a doctor, they bring to the table their experience and their education. And I would never presume to tell a doctor what was medically significant. By the same token, while I appreciate the doctor's opinion, for a doctor to say to me what my 11 years of experience and my education, with my education, what it is that is valid to be considered for a legal defense, I'm sorry.
And the
I
other
think
thing
that
is,
you're a great attorney, and I think that you did your best job in defending your client. But we really cannot prove that this can induce someone to commit a murder or abuse
but
their children.
Sally sits here and
is
says,
a reasonable doubt. I don't have to prove what all of
right.
medical science cannot prove. There only has to be a reasonable doubt. And if there's a doubt that the act was voluntary and or that there was a criminal intent, then it would be a denial of my client's constitutional right to a fair trial, to due process, to confront evidence,
We're talking about
and
beyond a
to
reasonable
embellish
doubt.
defense.
That's basically what we're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
and
But
Sally
I'm
sits
saying
here,
we can't prove it.
okay, and Sally sits here, though, and says that she could, in fact, have killed her husband.
That's what my gynecologist told me, and I've seen it with my own son. I mean,
So what do you
That-
say?
that
What do you
is
say to
very
her, Dr.
graphic.
Dakota?
I advise any patient who has problems with emotional instability to certainly get a good medical evaluation. There are
Do
many
you think that
different
she's
medical
emotionally?
problems.
Do you think she's
who can be
emotionally
causing
impaired
it.
as opposed to affected by the PMS?
I'm sure she's been affected by PMS. However, whether that caused her to beat her child, I do not know. There could be some other problems that she has
There wasn't.
that were never addressed, and
No.
we'll never know that.
Well, now I see Dr. Maturano, and we discussed everything from A to Z, and it was definitely, and I still go with him. I still had.
Or you're convinced it's the
Oh,
PMS?
it was definitely.
Now that you've gotten treated, do you beat your child
No.
anymore?
Matter of fact, because I have such like a guilt, what I did to my children, my son, I'm even afraid to like hit him to say, well, you know, you did, and he was really wrong.
All right.
So let
You
me
mentioned-
ask you this.
I'll tell you what, hold your thought. You mentioned Dr. Maturano. We're going to take a break. In a moment, we're going to be joined by Dr. Maturano, a psychiatrist who has treated more women for PMS than anybody else in this country. We'll continue this discussion about PMS right after this. Stay with us. And we're back. Please meet Dr. Joseph Martirano, who has treated more women for PMS than anyone else in this country. Also back with us, PMS sufferer Sally Delgado, lawyer Stephanie Benson, and Dr. Sue Dakotas. Dr. Martirano, first of all, is it legitimate to use PMS as a legal defense for a criminal case?
Yes, I believe it is. We've shown via brain studies that the brain has aberrations due to a relative hypoglycemia prior to the onset of menses. And those studies indicate that the individual's brain is not capable of determining whether or not they're committing a illegal act.
So it can, in fact, be the cause for someone to kill their husband?
Well, you need a firm brain to think, Jerry.
I mean, I understand that, but Dr. Dakotas, what do you say to Dr. Martirano about this?
I think that's really hard to prove. And we know that all women can suffer from premenstrual syndrome. So does that mean that all women have the potential to commit murders?
No, I think it depends on the degree of impairment. I don't think it's so hard to prove. We've been showing it with the computerized electroencephalography that there are aberrations of the brain in the premenstrual
But showing that there
period.
are aberrations does not mean that that can account for someone committing a horrible crime, like abusing their child or committing a murder.
I guess what she's saying is anybody can then say, oh, yeah, I was suffering from PMS, so I blew up, a building on Wall Street or something.
That sounds good, but first of all, I'd like to say that hypoglycemia has long been an accepted defense here. The other thing I'd like to say is that a woman would have to show that she has PMS, that she suffered from it at the time, and it caused or contributed to the act. Now, there's always a jury, presumably, or a judge who tries the case. What I'm saying is it should be admissible. Then let the people decide, like any other defense.
I'd like to know why internists are making a judgment about whether a person's mental capacities are diminished. I think it has to be done by psychiatric, maybe forensic
Are
psychiatrists.
you referring to Dr. Dakota?
I am, yes. I'm curious as to why she is an expert in this particular area of medical judgment. The other thing I'd like to make is a comment, and that is that the number of people, of women with PMS, who would be in this considered category is so minute. It's not a defense for everybody. This is the most severe form, and it's limited to very few people in any country.
You sound like you know a lot about
Yes, I
this.
do. I treat PMS also. And I'm very concerned about women in general getting bad rap. This is the stereotype of the woman with the raging hormones who's out of control. It's very important in a responsible broadcast to mention that only a very small percentage of women are at risk to have significantly impaired judgment.
And we are a responsible broadcast, and we appreciate that point. Okay, now let's get a man's point of view here. Your comment.
My comment is I just think it's a legal cop-out, and the defense attorney seemed to have done a real good job. The prosecutor has to prove the case. I just was wondering if you'd open up the door for, is a high testosterone level excuse to rape somebody? It just seems to me like you really have a real fine balance there, and you got to be careful of that.
What do you think about
that may
Stephanie?
be so, but this country is finely balanced on the Constitution, and a fair trial is one of the corners of that finely balanced. I understand that you may not like it, but we don't like a lot of things that the Constitution allows, and it's just the American way.
They have something called premenstrual syndrome. What about postmenstrual syndrome? Does that exist?
It exists. I get it.
Do you get it? Sally, how does it affect you?
I'm fine right before my period. I'm terrific. And then Dr. Manorano will hear me call him up a few days after. I'm crazy. I'm going to go out of my mind. I feel this, that, and the other thing.
And also, I mean, women with really bad premenstrual syndrome can have symptoms throughout their entire cycle.
Well, that's what I had in the very beginning. That's when I was really out of whack. And they didn't even know what was wrong with me because every day I suffered with the same thing. And they couldn't diagnose what was really wrong.
And you take
And it's certainly an overlooked
progesterone
problem.
therapy now? Is that how you've gotten better? Okay, your question.
Can I ask you something? There are a lot of men who once a month go off the wall. Is there anything?
No kidding. That's true. That's true.
Premenstrual syndrome for men? Is that, it's not menstrual, but is there a name for it?
Doctor?
Not that I know of. I think
But they have
men are
men-
subject to irritability like women.
They have men's
Normal
men's
irritability.
support groups, though, for who are men who are husbands of women
PMS
who
sufferers.
who suffer from this. Doctor, what does a woman do if she feels that her PMS is getting out of control?
It depends on the age, Jerry. Under 30, we advocate they avoid sugars because that precipitates and causes an increase in the hypoglycemia. We advocate they eat small, frequent meals, take vitamin supplements, and avoid alcohol diligently, eating drops of alcohol and no citrus juice particularly because that bypasses the liver and goes directly
What about
to the brain.
vitamins?
We advocate the use of vitamins, multivitamins, particular formulas that have to be helped. But over 30, a lot of the women PMS sufferers who aren't cured by nutrition will need natural progesterone, which will cure the disorder. The crime that's committed here is that the women aren't being treated for what is a treatable disorder, whether or not they're tried on trial or not. It's a shame.
And it is a treatable disorder. I think that's the point we want to make.
Yeah.
And some of my patients have really improved on the birth control pill.
We find only a very small segment of that happens, actually, because it competes for the same receptor sites as you already know in the brain, and sometimes drives down the supply of
And
natural
the other issue
progesterone.
is if you have stress or emotional irritability, instability, don't just assume it's the premenstrual syndrome.
Okay. Before we go, I just want to get give us a round of applause if you think that PMS should be a valid legal defense. Do you believe it? Well, I guess who thinks it should not be a valid legal defense? All right. You heard our guests, Dr. Dakota, Stephanie Benson.
I'd just like to say that it resulted in the dismissal of all criminal charges against my client.
Okay, and you're an awfully good attorney, apparently. Okay, thank you all, my guests, for joining us, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.